Hi, everybody. It's me, Devin, and I am back like Rosie Gaines on Chaos and Disorder. Since October marks the 30th anniversary of the release of the Diamonds and Pearls album, I thought I would talk about the performance that set this album in motion for me. And that is Prince and the NPG's 1991 appearance on the Arsenio Hall show. First, I want to give you a little bit of context as to what was going on in my life personally when this album came out. 1991 was a year of non-stop upheaval for me. Between January 1991 and January 1992, my family and I moved 5 times across 3 different states, and I changed schools 4 times. So we lived in Indiana when I saw the Get Off video for the first time. Less than 2 months later, we were in North Carolina. By the time the Arsenio performance happened, I had only been at my new school a few days, and I hadn't made any friends yet. So the loneliness was profound. The MTV VMA's performance when Prince had his booty out was shortly thereafter. And while I remember watching that with my parents, and of course we talked about Prince's booty, especially my mom, I had no idea how my perspective on Prince's artistry would be rocked the following night. Arsenio came on past my bedtime, and we had a secondhand VCR with a sometimey timer. So my mom stayed up and recorded the performance for me. I woke up an hour earlier the next morning just so I could watch it before I went to school. I kept bugging my mom for details before I even pressed play. How was it? What did he perform? What did he look like? Did he talk? And then I pressed play.
The planet we call Earth, it's the Arsenia Hall show starring Arsenia Hall. Tonight, Arsenio welcomes Prince of the New Power Generation.
This is why I say the Arsenio performance was my first Prince concert. The anticipation was so similar to what I would experience going to an actual Prince concert for the first time 6 years later. It felt like Arsenio and Patti Label talked forever at the beginning. But I did not fast forward. The more Miss Patti got animated talking about Prince, the more excited I became. When Arsenio said, "Prince and the New Power Generation," and the opening chords to Diamonds and Pearls morphed into Let's Go Crazy, it just felt like fireworks were going off inside my chest. Then the climactic dance break during Kiss. That was it. After that first medley, it was a done deal. Another thing I remember was how impressed I was with not only Miss Patti's presence that night, but Little Richard's. I was very impressed that 2 of Prince's musical forebears were present to watch him perform. The importance of that was not lost on me. And of course, MC Hammer was there, and he was red hot at the time, and Sheila E. That was a big deal. And it felt like Miss Patti was a great buffer between Prince and Arsenio. If Prince wasn't going to give an interview that night, Miss Patti was certainly the right person to give the audience a glimpse into Prince's personality, with her personal stories of working with him and just hanging out with him or dancing with him. I always thought it was so sweet when she said she felt like his mother, or like Prince was treating her like she was his mother. My favorite performance was Cream. That Arsenio version of Cream is the definitive one for me.
Cream, get on top. Cream, you will come. Cream, don't you stop. Hear me. Cream, shovel rock.
It was the first time I'd ever heard that song, and that is the way to this very day that I always hear it. By the time the official video came out, I already had the Arsenio version in my head. And to this day, that is still my favorite performance of Cream. I also like this performance because Prince was visibly nervous. When he sings, "Yes, you are," and points into the camera, you can see his hand shaking. He's also wearing one of my favorite outfits he ever wore. It's I think it was black velvet. I think that was velvet. Black velvet catsuit with the Chanel belt and the huge early version of the love symbol hanging from the belt. And he on a matching do-rag with the love symbol pin. And that do-rag was hiding the typhoon. So because we had this raggedy secondhand VCR, while my mom was recording, she kept hitting the pause button to make sure the VCR was still working. She hit it during Cream, and there's a whole section of the guitar solo that's missing from the original recording that I had on VHS. It wasn't until that show was uploaded on YouTube in its entirety that I finally heard the guitar solo intact. And then Daddy Pop, Rosie Gaines. I mean, Rosie is my Aretha. I grew up during 1980s Aretha, so I came in on songs like Jump to It, Who's Zoomin' Who, Freeway of Love, Jimmy Lee. Jimmy Lee is my favorite Aretha song. But my favorite Aretha album is I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. So when Rosie and Prince covered Dr. Feelgood from that album during the Diamonds and Pearls tour, that cemented Rosie's place in my heart. I also loved her album, Closer Than Close. I played it so much when it first came out, and I still play it from time to time. Daddy Pop was exhausting. Prince jumping off the piano, releasing balloons. Him, Damon, Tony, Kirk, doing all that high-powered choreography. Rosie's sneak attack with the vocals while doing choreography. The whole thing was just spectacular. And there were points during that episode where I felt like Prince was avoiding Arsenio. You can kind of see it during the opening medley at the end, like when Arsenio and Miss Patti approach after he's done. He greets the crowd, kisses the crowd, does like air kisses, and then he walks away from Arsenio as he approaches. And then during Daddy Pop, at the end, he blows a kiss into the crowd again, and then he slides into the crowd as Arsenio is approaching. And I always noticed that, and I don't know if that was intentional, But I know that Arsenio kind of said some sideways things about Prince before with like other Prince related guests. So maybe there was some shade throwing going on as far as Prince was concerned. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. But that's what it sort of seemed like with those two performances in particular, but especially Daddy Pop at the end. I mean, he just slides into the crowd, which was fantastic. But I just always noticed how it was right as Arsenio was approaching. The Purple Rain performance was really good, too. And that actually may be one of my favorite performances of Purple Rain of Prince's that I've seen. But my favorites from that night were Cream and Daddy Pop. This was also one of my favorite iterations of the New Power generation. For the next several weeks, I watched Prince's Arsenio performance every single day before I went to school. It was a part of my morning ritual, and it motivated me. That was when I started the process of going back and buying his earlier albums, starting with For You, Prince, and then there was a cassette that had Dirty Mind on side A and Controversy on side B. And it had one of those nice price stickers on it. So that's how I got into those two albums. Everything associated with the Diamonds and Pearls album, I had to have it. The video collection on VHS, all the maxi singles for Cream, for Get Off, the maxi video for Get Off. Violet the Organ Grinder is still my favorite off of that one. If there was anything associated with the Diamonds and Pearls album, all the extras, I was on the hunt for all of it. Even the cassette singles. If the cassette single had a B-side I had never heard before, I bought it. Insatiable had I Love You and Me as a B-side. Get Off, the regular single, had Horny Pony as a B-side. And Horny Pony is still one of my favorite Prince B-sides ever. Before Prince's Arsenio Hall show performance, I'd seen other performances of his. I mean, I went to the theater with my dad to see Sign of the Times when I was maybe 9. And I forced my friends to see Graffiti Bridge with me. But there was just something different about this particular experience. Perhaps it was a combination of all of the changes that I was going through in my life in such a short amount of time. But it forever changed not only how I approached Prince's artistry, but it also raised my standard for other artists that I was into. And I just loved the Arsenio Hall show. It was such a good show. Especially with the music, there were always people from all kinds of genres. That was the first time I'd ever seen the group Zap Mama on live TV, was on Arsenio. There were just so many different artists that were on there. And in 1 week, it would be just completely different genres in 1 week. And it was just perfect that Prince would be on there. And the fact that he chose Arsenio, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing when he chose Arsenio to have that kind of free, really it was a free mini concert. And it was accessible, and it wasn't even cable. So you didn't even have to have cable to see that performance. So it's just on so many levels that performance was just so important. But I think Arsenio Hall show was also extremely important, especially that first go around in the late 80s, early to mid 90s. It was a very important show. So what do you remember about Prince's Arsenio performance? Is it one of your favorites? Have you possibly not even seen it? If you have, did this performance get you hyped for the release of Diamonds and Pearls? Please share with us your thoughts in the comments about this particular performance. Also, make sure to like this video, share it, and if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to Prince's Friend and turn your notifications on so you know when a new video becomes available. You can also become a member here on YouTube or a patron over at Patreon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I love you all. Peace and be wild.